tell you, it's been a hell of a week. There's been a ton of response to 42nd Street Pete's Grindhouse Purgatory YouTube channel. So it has been a hell of a week, and I lost a tooth in the process, but that's not going to affect what's going on here. Today I wanted to try something a little bit different. Everybody knows that I created a magazine about 6 years ago called Grindhouse Purgatory. I have one right here. So we can pull it out of the pile of shit. This was my Something Weird Video tribute issue because I started with Something Weird Video, and if Something Weird Video hadn't given me the chance, there would be no 42nd Street Pete. That alone would probably make a lot of people out there happy, my detractors, but hey, fuck them. But anyway, you know, we created this magazine to honor Andy Kopp, and we never figured it would go past one issue. And now we're up to number 14. And if you want to bypass those evil scum-sucking devils at Amazon, you can order it directly from me. Just send me an email at grindhousepurgatory@gmail.com, and I'll be glad to hook you up with one. Probably a little bit cheaper than Amazon might want to do, because I'm just that kind of guy. But I don't exist just to put myself over, because that would be fucking bullshit. I read a lot, and a lot of stuff that I read you're not going to find on the internet. Books are good, books are knowledge, and there's certain books out about the genre that should be, I would consider, required reading. So without further ado, check out this one, Memories of a Madman by Madman Pondo. Pondo is one of the premier deathmatch wrestlers in the world today. He's had an astounding career, and it's all documented right here in his book. Nothing held back, nothing candy-coated or anything like that, because you know Pondo speaks the truth, and like me, has no filter. Little pick of Pondo on the back here with one of his weapons. Pondo has wrestled all over the country, all over the world actually, Japan, Europe, all over the place. If you're a fan of, you know, wrestling, and especially deathmatch wrestling, you will definitely want to pick up Memories of a Madman. Probably on Amazon, or you can contact Pondo on Facebook. Now another book which is really, really required reading is Shadows and Light by Gary Kent. I can't say enough about this book. This book chronicles the pivotal years of filmmaking from the early 60s up until the mid 80s, and Gary, God bless him, has not stopped a bit yet. He's still doing films, he's still writing, he's all over the place. It's like he had a resurgence in his career a couple of years ago. He just did a documentary, Danger Gods, which chronicles his life in the stunt world, in the film world, in the acting world, and everything. This was just republished by Happy Cloud Publications. You can get it on Amazon, or email Happy Cloud Direct. You can also find them on Facebook. Gee, I got so much shit here to play with. Now, a counterpart to what I was doing, you know, because I was a Grindhouse junkie starting in the mid-60s up until the mid-80s, but one guy who started in the 80s and wrote this book called Suburban Grindhouse, Nick Cato. This is an astounding book which chronicles a lot of films that, frankly, you know, some of them I've never heard of. And, you know, he lived in a neighborhood in Staten Island where they had some grindhouses, and occasionally took a dangerous foray into the wilds of Times Square and 42nd Street. Each chapter has, you know, a chat with a Grindhouse director. There's like, how many chapters? God, there has to be over 80 chapters covering a ton of great films and things. And like I said, Nick is sort of like, you know, I call him like the video store guy, because all these guys sort of grew up in the era when the video stores were coming into play, but these guys were still going to the movies and seeking out their cheap thrills there. So be sure to check out Suburban Grindhouse. Now this one's a little bit sad for me to show up. This was probably Jack Ketchum's last book, unless there's something sitting in his estate. I got this way before he passed away, and it's probably one of his most twisted works to date. Jack was sort of an inspiration and a mentor to me, and he encouraged me to, go into writing and, whatever I wanted to do, and was a huge fan of Grindhouse Purgatory, and was a huge fan of Gunfighters of the Drunken Master, too. So, this is his last book. It's called I'm Not Sam, and like I said, it was co-written with his buddy Lucky McKee, and it's pretty twisted. So, out of respect for Jack, I just wanted to let people know that this book is still available. Now, if you're a Bronson fan, and Bronson was huge in the Grindhouse era, Paul Talbot wrote Bronson is Loose and followed it up with another book, Bronson's Loose Again, which chronicles a lot of stuff that Bronson fans will want to read about. He stays away from, the obvious things like Mr. Majestic and things like that, but concentrates on the 5 Death Wish films, Hard Times, and other films that Bronson was in. Also has a lot of memories from, cast members on those films, guys that he purposely gave a break to, like Danny Trejo and other people. And these are just 2 great books, and Paul's a good guy. When he found out that I lost a lot of my book collection in an unfortunate little water break incident here, he sent me out a copy of each book. So I strongly recommend that if you're a Bronson fan, please pick these up. Bronson's Loose and Bronson's Loose Again. Now, another buddy of mine and a buddy of Gary Kent is John Bud Cardos, who is one of Gary's best friends and his frequent co-star. They both starred in Satan's Sadist, where they pretty much beat the shit out of each other during the film. But Bud wrote his life story in this book, Action, and it was co-edited by Bob and Lynette Dix. Bob, unfortunately, has passed away. My only problem with this book is it's too damn short. Having talked to Bud a number of times on my old radio show and in person, this could be like 3 times the size of it, but still, it's a great read. And speaking of publications, there's very few that have survived and actually flourished on a newsstand in Barnes & Noble, but Shock Cinema is one of them. I have always been a huge fan of Shock Cinema. Steve tells it like it is. I believe this magazine comes out like 4 times a year. He's also been a huge supporter of what I do, and I've also been a huge supporter of what he does. I mean, this mag, if you even get back issues, has some astounding interviews with some great cult people and Grindhouse people, and just, a whole take on a lot of films that if it wasn't for Grindhouse, it wasn't for Shock Cinema, we would have never heard of. So please check out Shock Cinema at the very affordable price of only still $5 an issue. It's still in Barnes & Noble, if there's still any Barnes & Noble still standing. Now for my own little shameless plug, 42nd Street Pete's autobiography, A Whole Bag of Crazy, sordid tales about hookers, weed, and grindhouse movies. This pretty much chronicles a lot of my life growing up in a restrictive area in the 50s and 60s where monster movies were forbidden. You'd get chastised in class if you got caught with a monster magazine. So this didn't discourage me. This sort of drove me into the whole grindhouse scene over on 42nd Street in Times Square. And I have no filter. I left nothing out here, and you can order this book directly from me. Just again, email me at grindhousepurgatory@gmail.com. And I'll tell you how to get a signed copy if you want, and I'll even pay for the shipping. It's $15, signed and shipped. So everybody who's written this, and I'm not blowing my own fucking horn because I don't do this, I haven't had one negative review on this book. So if you like what I'm doing here and you want to read more, because I'm working on the second one, check out A Whole Bag of Crazy. Now, going back into the wrestling mode, another guy who I was fortunate to meet and hang out with a bit was Sabu. Sabu was one of the true innovators of the business. He was a nephew of the original Sheik. He cut his teeth on the indie scene all over the country on the East Coast and went to Japan, where he was the guy who broke a table. Yes, Sabu, believe it or not, and he's been stolen from many times, was the first guy to break a table. And this is his autobiography, and he doesn't hold anything back. All the drugs, the craziness, working for ECW, working for WCW, XPW, finally going to Vince and having that not work, and then going back out on the indies where he's still working today. So check out this book. It's called Sabu, Scars, Silence, and Superglue. Totally a great read, and if you're into wrestling at all and you were a big ECW fan, you need to check this out. And last but not least for this segment, Goldust. Woody Strode. Woody Strode was the first black superstar, started back in the 50s, came up, was in the professionals, once upon a time in the West, did a lot of work in Italy, did a lot of work for John Ford, and this book is just full of great stories of him hanging out and getting drunk with Lee Marvin during the professionals, his football career, his wrestling career, and all the movies he did. So check out Woody Strode's Goldust. Well, that's all I got for you right now. I'll be back later on with some more cool shit. And that's what I call this segment, turning you guys on to some cool shit.